You are listening to Talking Star Wars. I'm Connor.
And I'm Alex.
We're going to talk about Star Wars today,
As usual.
and we're going to focus on fashion as storytelling.
Yeah. So the way in which, wardrobe, fashion, and other things function as a storytelling device in Star Wars for various characters and in various stories.
We get some sort of like instant sense of characters like Obi-Wan's robes. He is this wizard. We see Princess Leia. She is in a like long noble robe. Darth Vader is clearly not a great guy.
I mean, all black with a skull-like helmet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this very visually distinct way in which someone's clothing and uniform and wardrobe choice are then both depicting them as characters and the way it changes
Mm-hmm.
over time as a storytelling device.
And do you want to start by focusing on chronologically with the prequels, or do you want to start with time?
Let's go chronologically. So let's start with the New Hope and
Mm-hmm.
the original trilogy. So you have Darth Vader all in black, and then you have all the Imperial uniforms, which is the white stormtroopers, the
Mm-hmm.
gray officers, the
Right.
the Death Star itself is gray, so they're all matching, and there's all this their uniform. They got
Mm-hmm.
the rank badges on their chests.
Very clean, very straight, flat uniforms. Stormtroopers are very skull-like in their depiction as well, skeletal. And then we have the character who goes through the most amount of change would be Han Solo, who goes through various vests and jackets.
Yeah, before
Just
ending
kidding. Yeah.
before ending up as
Mm-hmm.
then he even wears his nice tight leather pants for
Mm-hmm.
the award ceremony. He
Mm-hmm.
actually cleaned up a little bit, and it actually appears somewhat cowboy heroic. But then the last time we see him, he's in commando fatigues after becoming a general in Return of the Jedi, where he's almost abandoned his cowboyness and had committed. I think that wardrobe change
Mm-hmm.
towards the end of Return of the Jedi, after he's freed from carbonite, is certainly a sign that he's killed the rest of his cowboy past when with the death of Jabba the Hutt and is now committed to being a rebel.
He's softened in his look. Like he's very kind of like buttoned up in the collar.
Yeah,
He's not the slob that he was in A New Hope.
yeah. And then he's got the poncho
Mm-hmm.
and the everything else going on with the camouflage and the generalness
Mm-hmm.
happening.
But that is very minor compared to a character like Luke, who goes from just these pure, almost white. Uh, I would call it like a fantasy tunic or maybe a karate
Yeah,
inspired
we call yeah.
outfits.
He's wearing this desert tunic and
Yeah.
it's light colored is what he wears for most of A New Hope
Mm-hmm.
except for his flight jacket. And I think
Yeah.
they're pretty on the nose with the symbolism for Luke's wardrobe
Mm-hmm.
as time goes on. So why don't you take it away there, Connor?
Small footnote: he's wearing blue jeans in A New Hope, and they just bleached them.
I mean, hey, jeans might exist in Star
Mm-hmm.
Wars.
There's no lore saying that they do not, but we see him and it's kind of this. He's
The milk
wearing
is blue and the jeans are white.
yes, it's a fantasy world. So when we transition to The Empire Strikes Back, we have the X-wing outfit as we did with the New Hope, but the only other clothing that we see Luke wear is this very brown jumpsuit, this tan brown jumpsuit, and you're going from this pure white tunic, farmer's tunic, to this like dirty, dingy rather, jumpsuit. Before we get to the final film in the trilogy, where he's wearing this black, uh, almost I would say it's a little imperial how it looks and just how clean and
Yeah,
unadorned it is.
yeah. And I would like to draw attention to the first time we see Luke dressed in this full black outfit and how
Mm-hmm.
it's telling the story because he is actually shot as the antagonist in that
Yes.
scene when he when he enters Jabba's palace.
Mm-hmm.
The camera does not follow Luke; it follows the guards that are trying to stop Luke and the other people that interact with him as he goes.
You mean
He's
the
this
guards who are trying not to choke to death because Luke's forcing
Yeah,
them
so
to
he's
choke?
dressed. He's this.
Yeah.
He's almost like this. He's almost like Cad Bane, the
Mm-hmm.
black-clad stranger walking into the criminal's den. He is dressed all in black. He has powers that understand. Everyone is afraid of him,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's an interesting counterpoint to how he struggles with his darkness later in the movie. So,
Yeah.
where he's not dressed in traditional Jedi robes, so he might not know what they are, but
Mm-hmm.
he has chosen to dress all in black, black glove, black tunic,
Mm-hmm.
black pants. Um,
He has a kind of vest and cape that he wears in the beginning of the film, which is a little more akin to a Jedi, but the cape also just we saw Obi-Wan wearing a hood, but it's yes, he's framed very much like the villain in this scene.
Yeah,
And we have
he
this
force
yeah.
chokes the Gamorreans. He Jedi
Mm-hmm.
mind tricks um, the Vizier of Jabba the Hutt.
And it's this clear swing from light to dark, where the story has had a heavy toll on him, and I would say that's the cause of his turn.
Yeah. But then he meets up with Chewbacca and Han Solo again, and you sort of almost forget about the darkness. So then, okay, he's got the new lightsaber. He's saving his friends. He's chopping some bandits with his lightsaber. He's saving Leia. So all of that, then he's back in this heroic idiom. But you can even tell that Han Solo is a little bit suspicious of Luke's newfound. He's calling himself a Jedi, and Han Solo's like, "Oh God,
delusions of grandeur."
Yeah. So, and then at the end, so he stays in that black outfit for most of the film. He throws on the commando poncho over it during the infiltration of Endor, but then when he gives himself up, he's back in his black outfit, and he's wearing that black outfit the whole time when he's fighting Vader, and when he almost kills his own father as the Emperor cackles in glee as he tries to fall to the dark side.
And it's not until the end of that battle where we see the opening of his jumpsuit flap open, and in contrast to all of the black in his wardrobe, there's white on the inside.
Yeah, the white shirt underneath the black. He was light all along, but he needed to move through the darkness.
I think it's a great way of showing that at this point, much like Obi-Wan Kenobi just cutting off a guy's hand in the cantina scene in A New Hope, there are certain moral gray areas that Luke needs to follow. And he sees that he gets a little bit too close to the dark side when he's just overhead swinging and attacking Vader.
And we know that darkness is something he carries with him the rest of his life. He almost murders his nephew, Ben Solo, in a very similar fashion. The lightsaber hung, struggling with the darkness inside him, thinking what he should do, and that has consequences.
And it's ironic because his wardrobe at that point is pretty much all white again. It's this very traditional Jedi robe, wizard robe, where I don't think I've ever seen a Jedi wear this much light fabric. He's going so much into the
opposite
ideal
direction.
Yeah, I am the symbol. I am the new hope.
Yeah, he's idealized himself as Yoda. Yoda's Force Ghost lambasts him for. And then so he's in this very gray outfit then when he's in exile. But when he force projects himself, he is dressed again in the traditional Jedi robes with white underneath.
It's more balanced. It's even if it's dark on the outside, at its core, he is a beacon of light. So I think Luke definitely has the most. I would say the least subtle.
Yeah, I mean, it's as far as like hit you in the face with color symbolism. There was white inside all along. It's not intended to be subtle. It's like Stephen King once said. It's like, oh, did you really, John Coffey, the character in Green Mile, is he a Christ figure? His initials are JC, and he's like, yes. I don't get points for being subtlety. I wanted you to understand that, so I gave him the initials JC. If you didn't realize it, I'm so sorry. So yes, we're intended to see that struggle through the colors and the way in which Luke's outfit. But I think you also have to look at the other subtleties of it too. The camera work framing him as an antagonist when he enters in, the way his face is framed half in light and half in shadow during the duel in Return of the Jedi, which is one of the most compelling scenes in that movie. His no when he attacks Vader after Vader goads him into attacking him, for calling upon the dark side.
Also, he opens the movie by choking someone. That's a clear sign of his.
Yeah. And at the point, I mean, the only other person we've seen use that is his father, who when he forced choked several people to death in the Empire Strikes Back, and then we see Luke using the same ability. So it's not like, it's not canon at that point that force choke is an evil power. Obi-Wan never force choked anybody. And Darth Vader force choked a lot of people, and so I think this is Luke. It's intended to be Luke drifting too close to his father.
He hasn't had the training, which
and we can talk about intention. I will read the art that way, as in this is a depiction of Luke drifting too close to his father.
Very true. So in terms of wardrobe, we didn't touch on Leia, and Leia has her own journey as well.
So just one thing to get out of the way is that you'll see a focus more. Female characters having lots of different wardrobes. This might be because George Lucas wanted to sell more toys. But we're going to approach this from the perspective of what does it say about their character and universe. So Leia, I think, also has a fairly straightforward arc, and I think it's a good one. Ignoring some of the sexist reasons she might have just been in a robe. in most of the first movie. She was an ambassador who was captured, so she stays in this robe for most of the first movie until she is rescued. But even then, she's still mostly in the princess robe. She's Princess Leia.
And then a princess dress at the end. When
Yeah,
she's
to
at the
give,
award ceremony.
even though her planet has been destroyed, and everyone's trying to keep it together. But if anyone listening has read the comic series that bridges episodes 4 and 5, you know that in that interim things go badly for the rebellion. You know, that's why they're still fleeing the rebel base on Hoth as the Empire cracks down. And so Leia goes from being a princess to having the formal military rank of general. So she, instead of just being this political advisor who has only nominal authority, by the time of Hoth, she is the commander of that base along with General Organa. So she's the one ordering the evacuation, staying behind, ordering the troops. So she has a formal military. And yeah, it's also Commander Skywalker and Captain Solo. They have those actual ranks in the rebellion now.
Yeah. And her wardrobe is it's very tactical, utilitarian. In Empire Strikes Back, she has her Hoth military gear, followed by
yeah, she's wearing a military uniform of the rebellion. It's in the same style as General Organa's was.
She has a dress on Cloud City, but I think that's just for momentary comfort.
Well, Lando gives it to her, and she's not happy about it.
Yeah.
She wears it only for the convenience of politics with Lando, and she straight up says, "I don't trust Lando," and she's disdainful of, at that point, the dress she's wearing. We very rarely see her in like any kind of like fancy dress or anything like that.
Yeah,
I think
very simple.
Cloud City might be the last time.
Yeah, by and large.
Yeah, I mean, and of course we have to mention the slave bikini, which is a product of the 80s. And...
Which, I mean, like, I don't hate it because, like, in universe...
Yeah, because we want to look at it as how it's the story being told. It's
a big slimy worm is going to enslave you is, you know, that's not a good thing. So I don't look at Slave Leia as, ooh, she's in a bikini. I think, oh, Jabba put her in a bikini. Yeah. What an ass.
So it could have done a little bit more work of making sure that this is not supposed to be a titillating thing. Yeah. Because it certainly isn't also intended to be a titillating thing, and instead it's supposed to be a way in which, you know, this horrifying, misanthropic, you know, controlling...
exploitative.
Yeah, guy in Jabba the Hutt is attempting to control her physically and sexually. So that's, you know, that is the storytelling read you have on it. The visual depiction is inviting a little too much titillation for comfort.
It's sold by the fact that she is the one who overcomes Jabba in the end.
Yeah, she kills him, and the first thing she does after leaving is change out of outfit and never wear it again.
You put me in chains, I'm gonna put you in a chain.
Yeah, so I do think you have to view that scene as it was involuntary, and she literally murders the man who dresses her that way, and then never wears a dress again. She wears a gown in the Ewok village, I suppose. But she has her pants on underneath it. So
yeah, I view that as an outfit. I don't know if it's a dress per se. It's
she did what she could in an Ewok village to get out of her combat fatigues.
She looks like a hippie. It's very in line with the natural aspect. It's the only time she has her hair down. So I don't know if there's some...
yeah, I definitely you look at the way hair has always been historically very important for both men and women, but especially for women. And so I think the way in which you see Leia's hair is always up. It's in the bun, the braided bun for most of Empire Strikes Back. Before that, it was in the like double braids on the side of her head, and then she still keeps it up for the duration of Return of the Jedi too, just a practical made up behind her head. And then when she's General Organa in the future leading the Resistance, hair up. Yeah. You know, the only time we only ever really see it down in the one scene where she's in the Ewok village and has been captured.
And she's really in military fatigues from, just in terms of canon, Return of the Jedi, all the way through Force Awakens. We don't see what goes on in between, but...
Yeah. I mean, she's mentioned of having, like, formal gowns and things in the novel Bloodline, which depicts her as a senator in the New Republic. But at that point, she's, like, a war hero and has a lot of things going on, so she adapts to the situation. So I think, storytelling-wise, what Leia's wardrobe choices are showing is that, you know, largely she's not intended to be viewed as a titillating character. She is the highest ranking military member of our trio of heroes by far. Until, you know, and then eventually we get, you know, both Luke and Han, after everyone else dies, are elevated to the rank of general as well. But Leia is certainly general step up.
Yeah.
There's not really anyone else to go, so the 3 generals get to go in the field as in any revolutionary army.
And then I will say her black dress in The Last Jedi was probably just for style, because it looked good. Like, I don't know if there's a story reason why she is now wearing a fashionable dress as she's fleeing the First Order.
Was it trying to make everyone appear calm, like things are in control?
That could work. Yeah, she's
Um,
not in the military guise. She's more in her formal wear.
yeah, because they're in space now, so she's no longer in command. On the ground, she's General
Hmm.
Organa. In space, it's now Admiral Akbar. And
Right.
then Admiral Akbar dies, then it's Vice Admiral Holdo.
Right.
Leia was never, the
It's a good
commander of a
distinction.
ship. She's never
Hmm.
been, even when they're flying in the Millennium Falcon, Han Solo was captain of the ship, is in charge.
Yeah.
Leia gives her opinion, but she never does, contradict the person. She realizes we never see Leia piloting a fighter herself like Luke does. We
Hmm.
never see her shooting anybody down directly. Her strengths have always been personal combat. She's good with a blaster and in the political arena.
Yeah. And in battle prowess, regardless. In A New Hope, you're gonna get us killed. I'm in charge now.
Yeah, tactical,
Yeah.
small squad battle tactics, not space combat.
Hmm.
So uh, I think part of that has to do with Carrie Fisher's health. To be honest, but
Hmm.
from a storytelling perspective, we'll view that as everyone's calm, and I don't want anyone to be confused about who's in charge on this military bridge. I am here as I'm the head of our organization, but I'm not in charge on this ship.
Right. I'm not making orders.
Yeah, and then when she does have to take charge, she's back in military fatigues again when gets out of the infirmary and stuns Poe, right?
Hmm. I thought she was in like a medical gown.
Yeah, but again, she's not
Yeah.
she's not back in a fancy dress. She's
Yeah.
in like a medical gown with bandaged up, and she stuns
Hmm.
Poe Dameron in the face.
But
So
as far as original trilogy goes, I'm pretty sure that's our three main characters have those transition just to demonstrate their characterization.
I think the other person to look at that way is Lando Calrissian,
Hmm.
who's
Oh,
sort of
sure.
like almost like along with Chewbacca, is sort of the secondary member of the original core
Yeah.
group, and he's incredibly fashionable, as we see even in Solo. And he never quite loses his style. He keeps the cape, but
Hmm.
I think. Well, let's talk about the very significant. It's also a practical decision. We see him dressed in Han Solo's clothing.
Oh yeah.
He
At the
changes
end
out
of
of his.
Empire.
Yeah, he changes out once
Yeah.
he has been outed as a traitor who was forced into a decision and then has redeemed himself by rescuing Leia and Han.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, and then he goes undercover. So we see Lando. I think it's to show him as kind of this chameleon. We actually whatever role he's in, he's dressed for it. So when
Yeah.
he's a Barrett administrator, he's fancy. When he's a scoundrel, he's similarly fancy. And he has this sort of affectation for nice
Mhm.
clothing. But then you go in a deeper level. This is how he's portraying himself, and you see Lando actually starting to go through character growth when he's like, okay, what is the right thing to be wearing in this situation? And so he dresses as like a grungy guard to go undercover in Return of the Jedi. And then when he dresses as probably the most stylish military outfit, but it is this
Yeah.
as General Calrissian.
There's a headcanon post that I read that Ben Solo got his affection for capes from Lando, Uncle Lando.
Yeah. Lando never loses his sense for style. Then he becomes a
Mhm.
CEO of a droid company. In the interim, he's no longer Baron Administrator because they
Mhm.
integrate themselves into the New Republic, Cloud City. But
Once we see him again, he's camouflaged in a different person's garb, and then at the end, he's wearing another cape.
yeah, so it's like he gravitates towards who he is, but Lando is a depiction of how he's portrayed as this chameleon and sort of less slimy, but more like almost like he's this smooth operator, and that he's always
Yeah.
adapting to the situation that he's in.
Oh yeah.
Whereas Han Solo is like, yeah, I'll go. I'm just gonna wear my tight pants all the time. And Lando is like, no,
Put a different coat
cape
on it.
is for playing sabacc. The military fatigues are for leading the charge. And never the twain shall meet, except if I can work the cape into my fatigues. And then it's best of both worlds. So
Han's gonna wear a vest or a jacket, and that's the end of the story.
So I think our next topic then, talking about how fashion is used in a storytelling sense to reveal things about characters. Let's go to the prequel trilogy.
Sure. So taking a look, it's very simple when it comes to the Jedi. We have our protagonists of Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, and their clothing gets decidedly darker and grungier as the trilogy goes on.
Yeah, as the Clone War progresses, you see definitely the change in war. We start with all the Jedi are in these brown, simple robes.
Mhm.
That's intended to show that they don't own property and they're servants of the Republic.
Hmm.
And then, of course, some Jedi have a better fashion sense than others. Dooku is mentioned as have always had an affectation for finely tailored clothing.
He's got a cape.
Yeah, so
Can't beat
because Jedi, and that protects Jedi as people. They have different senses. There's the general uniform, and people customize it from there. Like during the Clone Wars, Anakin preferred this. He was a military general. He preferred this more, He had the darker robes in general,
Mhm.
like the maroon purplish robes with the black.
Yeah.
Um, whereas Obi-Wan had the traditional tan on brown
Mhm.
on tan as Qui, but to copy his master Qui-Gon.
Yeah, and even his, it's whether it's going from white to brown in order to like show that he's growing into that traditional Jedi role, or that it's the tainting of the Jedi Order that even the brightest and best has shown the age and wear of the Clone Wars.
Yeah, so and then you see through the Clone Wars show and through the movies themselves, the everyone gets progressively more military like, which is
Hmm.
definitely a sign of the Yoda managed to avoid it as his Mace Windu, but a lot of other Jedi are dressed more like like military generals.
Yeah, they incorporate some clone trooper armor, the gauntlets, chest plates, things like that.
Hmm. So I think that covers the Jedi. Then you have the character of Ahsoka Tano,
Hmm.
who starts as this very childlike. She's in shorts and a tube top, and all the kids will love her. And then it's like, oh no, she's an actual character. People find it interesting.
I just
And
view that as impractical in a battlefield. That's just
yeah,
me.
yeah. So then when she becomes an adult character and wants to
Hmm.
take her more seriously as a depiction of that, she gets a full like Jedi style outfit with like an actual shirt
Hmm.
and pants, and two lightsabers now.
And then as she progresses through Rebels, she becomes more armored, and as she goes and continues through to the Mandalorian, she's not exactly in your Jedi colors are always going to be brown of some kind.
Yeah, so once she leaves the Jedi
Hmm.
Order, she deliberately eschews. She didn't really have much of their aesthetic to start with, but she still wore
Hmm.
the robes when required. But
Yeah,
when she leaves the Jedi, she never returns to the traditional Jedi attire.
yeah.
She has this. She has her. She enjoys her simple clothing. She
Hmm.
never has any really fashion sense.
It's like a blue
Or
tunic we've seen her in latest.
yeah, or fashion. Focus, but it's always on this easy to use. But where Luke is now then he's back in his black outfit,
Hmm.
which does look good on him. But Ahsoka is there just in a simple. She's not a Jedi. She is a light side Force user, but she has decided to stay not a Jedi.
Citizen.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Citizen Ahsoka. And the other prequel character, of course, that we need to talk about as
Hmm.
far as wardrobe goes, there are two, both politicians.
Hmm.
We have to need to talk about Padmè Amidala and Chancellor Sheev Palpatine.
Sheev is he's pretty pimpin', I gotta say, with his choice of robes. But they get more ornate and darker and more crimson as the trilogy goes on, the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, and you see through the Clone Wars, and as he gets more and more ornate, he's actually assuming more and more power. He's
Hmm.
undermining institutions, doing his way, working in the back alleys to remove all the checks and balances on his power.
Yeah.
Which, if you haven't watched the Clone Wars series, it's how he takes control of the banks, and how he gets his term extended, and how he quietly removes people who are a threat to his plans.
Hmm.
But when he reaches his endgame, he has seized absolute power.
Hmm.
He no longer feels the need for such pretension personally. So he's able to abandon these trappings of power because he has all the real power he needs. So he
Hmm.
just has the simple black robes. He largely doesn't appear in public anymore, speaking through advisors like Masamita and
Hmm.
Governor Tarkin. Um,
And he's so old and decrepit at this point that it's honestly comfort over style.
yeah, he's like, I can blast people with force lightning, and I command an entire empire of hundreds of thousands of
Mhm.
habitable planets. Come at me.
I'm wearing my bathrobe from now on.
Yeah,
20 years of black bathrobe.
yeah, and he never really deviates from that. The
Hmm.
one time you see like original Palpatine is always like it's a fake hollow,
Hmm.
or someone has doctored up his appearance.
And he's usually wearing like pure white robes at that point
Yes,
too, right?
if he
Yeah.
ever has a fake appearance, it's like the opposite of his real appearance.
Hmm.
Yes, but then we come to the character of Padmé Amidala, the Queen of Naboo, where she has these elaborate outfits that are traditional. Like Naboo is a very fashion
Hmm.
conscious society where
That's where
you're
Palpatine's from.
yeah, and it's
Hmm.
again, it's Palpatine has the same thing where it's these hand sewn clothing, as seen in novels like The Queen's Shadow, where. But part of it was also she felt that she was playing the character of Amidala. Amidala had a particular role.
Hmm.
It was Queen Amidala, not Padme. Padme was just the person underneath. She was
Hmm.
playing the role of Queen Amidala,
And
which is
her
how she.
handmaids could be Queen Amidala as well.
Yeah, and so it didn't matter if it was Corday or Padme or Sabe, whichever of her handmaids happened to be wearing the guise at the time.
Hmm.
Um, and then the only two people through the whole movie who know who they actually are Qui-Gon Jinn and Captain Panaka,
Hmm.
and neither of them want to reveal to anybody else what's going on.
Right.
So you see that as she is also deliberately using clothing, and I think in a very positive feminine sense to control her own circumstances, where she can have her handmaid take on the stifling role of queen that doesn't have freedom, and instead herself assume the role of the simple handmaid.
So that it's and because it is so ornate, uh, and due to the likeness resemblance between Natalie Portman and Keira Knightley,
Yeah, Keira Knightley's character was known as Sabe.
Sabe, we
Yeah.
have no idea as an audience that they're switching roles, and it's this peacock figure of Padme who is more clothes than person. It's very easy to not be able to distinguish who's who. What about when we get to
Her as a senator.
yeah?
So she has, I think, is a sign of her social status and all that, is that we see
Hmm.
her, like Anakin is always in the same set of robes or jacket all the time,
Hmm.
and he's a Jedi. That's like not exactly a vow of poverty, but a vow of physical and a material detachment.
Yeah.
Where she has a role to put on. So we see her in dresses, we see her in gowns, simpler than when she was queen, but still like fancy hair nets. She still has handmaids that help her dress and clothes. And then but then in the Clone Wars series, we also see she still will throw on some pants and a vest and blast some
Hmm.
people in the Clone Wars if she has to.
Thank goodness for the Clone Wars, just to widen the characterization a bit.
Yeah, so that definitely shows that she's and as the novels also show, she transitions from being a queen to being a senator, um, and then she has to transition to being a secret wife to a
Hmm.
Jedi general, which is a terrible decision for both of them, but
Oh
that's
yeah.
why it makes it interesting. And so but as far as what her wardrobe is showing, it's showing the same adaptability her daughter would show, and that she always wears
Hmm.
the appropriate clothing almost as a weapon in any particular environment.
Yeah.
So she's either can be taken seriously, she can pass unnoticed. I mean, she goes undercover as a slave the one time to
Hmm.
help infiltrate that separatist slaving ring. Um, yeah, but most of the time we see her when she's flying around, we see her dressed practically.
Hmm.
She only pulls out the flowing gowns on actual occasions when she's like in the Senate.
Right. Or when she's trying to tell Anakin there's no chance for them to fall in love, even
Yeah,
though she's wearing what many would consider to be a BDSM leather outfit, but
I mean it's Naboo, man. Their
yeah,
fashion is, uh,
paramount.
yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I think she was falling in love with Anakin at that point.
Oh sure.
Not an advised or good decision, but she
Hmm.
was. And then I think, I mean, even she's in this. It's interesting. She's wearing dark black clothing when she tells Anakin that she's pregnant,
Hmm.
which she was dressed in mourning. So I think it's a sign
Yeah.
of the fear that she's feeling at the time. So it's intended to. He's in this dark general clothing, just finished a battle, has this scar over his eye,
Hmm.
and then you see he forces the happiness for her, even though he can imagine the complications.
Right.
Um,
How do you explain a forbidden baby?
Yeah, and he never super embraces the concept of fatherhood. It's always
Hmm.
Padme. The
Yeah.
fact that she's happy to be having children, he's fine. But he doesn't really have any particular attachment to the children outside of her, and never really even mentions them again in the movie.
I don't think he's built to process what it means to have children because their Jedi do not have children. Jedi do not have
Yeah, he
attachments.
didn't have a father, and he is so traumatized by what happened to his mother, he avoids the thought of parenthood at all possible.
Yeah.
Which is why even Darth Vader, 20 years later, is so shaken when he learns that Luke
Hmm.
Skywalker exists. It's a scene he learns it first from Boba Fett in a comic scene where he
Hmm.
hires Boba Fett to find out who's this asshole that blew up my Death
Hmm.
Star. And Boba Fett is like, well, I couldn't find his full name because the rebellion keeps things close, but I learned his last name. It's Skywalker.
What?
Yeah. And he almost shatters the view screen of the star, and he realizes at that moment the Emperor's lied to him, which
Hmm.
is why he's able to be so calm and collected when the Emperor calls him later, because the Emperor is probably a detective. Oh, my servant knows something.
Whoopsie. Yeah.
Yeah, but getting a little
Yeah.
off track of our fashion discussion here. So just to talk about some other interesting characters where you have storytelling through there, you have those Imperial officers who choose to wear white instead of black, and the two that come to mind are Orson Krennic and Grand
Hmm.
Admiral Thrawn.
There's also isn't there another Admiral Yularen?
He's a colonel at that
Colonel
point,
Yularen.
and he leads the ISB,
Hmm.
the internal. So, but yeah, you have these high-ranking Imperial officials who have, if they have the favor of the Emperor
Yeah.
and in the right position, they wear these white uniforms.
And they're not wearing white because they're good people. They're probably some of the most maniacal, dastardly
I'm not
villains.
sure I'd call Thrawn maniacal and dastardly. I'd call him cruel and pragmatic. But I mean, certainly an Orson Krennic is petty and
Hmm.
vindictive. And then you have Yularen, who, I mean, goes from hero of the Clone Wars to leader of the secret police that managed to rule the Empire with an iron fist.
Sure. Yeah, it's he serves a master. So him wearing white shows that he's currying favor with Palpatine.
Yeah, and so visually it makes these. I mean, you have the sea of non-individuality that
Hmm.
is the Imperial Officer Corps, and even Tarkin wears his well-tailored but normal Imperial,
Yeah.
Governor Moff outfit. But then you have Grand Admiral Thrawn, who's visually striking. Then it's still in a uniform, but he's got the white
Hmm.
uniform, the gold epaulets. This is, I think, intended to show that Thrawn understands that he's different and he needs to embrace that to then get people to notice him and take him seriously as a
Right.
non-human in the Imperial Navy.
Hmm.
Yularen does it as a way of distinguishing himself from everyone else in that never forget that he's the head of the secret police. And Orson Krennic does it because he wants to have that
Hmm.
status. Tarkin doesn't need to wear the
Right.
white uniform. He probably could have if he wanted to, but everyone's afraid of Tarkin anyway. Tarkin
Hmm.
doesn't need any trappings. His sheer presence is enough, whereas Orson Krennic even has this little cape put on that you don't see any other Imperials do. He has it
Hmm.
tailored.
I was gonna bring up the cape. It's another sign of Star Wars fashion sense. The
Yeah.
perpetual cape.
Well, that's even mentioned in a novel about Orson Krennic, where everyone thinks he's so pretentious for wearing the cape. It's
Hmm.
like it's technically allowed under the uniform code, but no one does it because it just looks so tacky. But Orson Krennic is like, I need the cape to weigh my authority and get
Yeah.
people to respect me. And everyone's just like, he's this engineer who thinks he's a great leader.
Right.
And I think that's portrayed in how ineffective he is at
Hmm.
managing people um,
Oh yes.
in Rogue One.
Hmm. So taking a look at the sequel trilogy, we don't have a whole lot of progression. We do see Finn, of course, drop the stormtrooper armor and incorporate a resistance jacket. With Rey, I think it's a nice take on the Jedi transition, where she starts off wearing sort of a dingy yellow
Mm-hmm.
set of robes. Goes gray for her next tube when she goes to Octo to train with Luke, and then she returns to Kylo Ren to battle him and Snoke. She's wearing gray Jedi robes, but she's taken on this role of the inspiration of Hope in the last film, Rise of Skywalker, and she's wearing a pure white outfit. But we see her have to do battle with her double, which is a version of her wearing all black. So it's an interesting way to show that, as opposed to Luke, who is embracing the darkness but still has light on the inside, Rey is trying so hard to stay with the light side, despite the fact that she is a Palpatine and she has this inner darkness. Um, but besides that, we talked about how the original characters transition through the sequel trilogy, but there's not a whole lot of other.
The character who goes through the most transitions is Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, and
Mhm.
it's primarily focused around his helmet as a symbol,
Yeah.
where he has it and then he smashes it and then he repairs it to become Supreme Leader, and he doesn't wear it again at the next movie at all.
Hmm.
So I think that's just to sort of show his inconstancy. He's always torn between one direction and
Hmm.
the other and has trouble. Other people make decisions for him, and he has surprisingly little agency for a main character because he mostly lets himself be manipulated by other
Yeah.
people.
He has a very hard time being himself, being Ben Solo. He wants to put on the symbology of something else.
Yeah, he wants to be
Yeah.
Darth Vader, and as Rey tells him, he will never be Darth Vader
Hmm.
when she reads his mind.
So then, looking at some expanded lore, you brought up an interesting case in Din Djarin, the Mandalorian.
Yes, so let's just talk about some other things. So Din Djarin is another sign. He's a character who never takes his helmet off because he's a part of the strict Mandalorian sect.
Except for when he does, because
But
he has to.
he's not supposed to.
Yeah.
But he starts off in this like sort of he's got this nice silver helmet, then he starts off in this grungy patched together armor. But by the second episode, he's got this full suit of silver Beskar armor.
Hmm.
And he looks like the shiniest Mandalorian we've seen in a long time. Mandalorians, as you know, tend to paint and customize
Hmm.
their armor, as you see through the Clone Wars, with the
Yeah.
symbol, with the colors of their house, the symbols of their family. But Din Djarin, who's sort of like he's almost this prodigal.
Hmm.
He's like the Mandalorian. There's organizations been scattered. They've been in civil wars with the others for years, crushed by the Empire and the Night of a Thousand Tears. Um, and so they're scattered, leaderless, and even the other members of his sect of Mandalorians still paint armor and are very customized.
Hmm.
But he keeps it blank silver. He doesn't paint it. He just keeps the raw Beskar showing. I think both is a flex because Din Djarin does do that,
Hmm.
but also I think it's because he feels adrift himself. He doesn't know where his loyalties truly lie, and I think that's the way. It's not so much as a blank slate for the viewer to view, but it's just supposed to show him as sort of like he's a man by himself. He doesn't
Yeah.
belong to any particular faction, and even the people that do help him largely So he has to make up his own way in the universe, and even his new ship in the Book of Boba Fett takes on the same silver coloration without insignia or logo.
Yeah. The last time we saw a Mandalorian wear such chrome armor was Jango Fett, which is canonically the first Mandalorian that we see in the series, which I think they waffled on whether or not Fett was a true Mandalorian or not, but they folded him back in now.
Well, Jango Fett was a foundling who
Yeah.
didn't stay with the Mandalorians, but did go through childhood with them, and then Boba Fett was his son.
Right. Much like Din is a foundling as well.
Yeah, but then stayed loyal to his sect until he sort of... It's an ongoing question for him.
Yeah.
So I think, and then I think that's another way of showing where armor can be a fashion choice and even not showing the actor's face. I think we can go more into armor and the way tools and weapons inform characters another way. Yeah. Another medium thinking with fashion. We have various selection of ponchos that you can wear in Fallen Order. Yeah, I think that's mostly intended to show Cal Kestis having to eschew the normal Jedi aesthetic to go undercover.
Be a traveler blend in.
Yeah, this all concealing outfit that he wears. What else comes to mind?
We see very, again, Star Wars is not known for its subtlety, but in the show Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi goes from... I always love when they incorporate colors into these outfits because he's wearing a very distinctly blue shirt, but he starts wearing more robe-like outfits until he is
back in Jedi
dark
robes.
Jedi robe and then his bright white A New Hope robes.
Yeah, so I think definitely Kenobi shows that, and then again, we don't really have a lot of arcs for characters. You see the Inquisitors deliberately dressed in this dark black, threatening way, moving around, being the conspicuous arm of the Empire. I think the only other character that I want to mention as far as fashion, there's not a whole lot of character fashion going on in the Rebels series, I would say, other than some characters growing up.
So any other final thoughts on style, fashion?
Well, I think that it's overall showing the emphasis of costuming, especially in the original and prequel trilogies, was definitely a way of showing character. And then I've gone a little bit back to that after, because the sequel trilogy takes place over a very short amount of time.
Not a lot of time for development and transition there.
They focused more on giving each character a distinct visual style that didn't change, whereas I think the change is sometimes very important. Like Lando, the scoundrel on Cloud City, is different than General Calrissian leading the attack on the Death Star, and his outfit is just as important as his mindset. Lando understands this.
With Poe and Finn in The Rise of Skywalker, it's more just alternative clothes. It's not so much different as far as their characterization goes, but it's just minor tweaks to show that there's been some passage of time or a change in the environment. Not like Rey, who's switching colors on us.
Yeah, so I'm hopeful that the focus remains on costuming and fashion as a way of storytelling, because I mean, in a galaxy that big, everyone should have different fashion and different choices. I mean, you can look at even people like Aayla Secura, who wears a much more practical, like athletic outfit than most other Jedi, rather eschewing the robes, to Yoda, who wears this almost burlap robe as a sign of his humility, to Mace Windu, the quintessential hardline traditionalist Jedi.
He doesn't go through any change in the
no, and it's part of what kills him.
Yeah,
part of what killed all the Jedi.
Right.
Yeah, and so that unchanging nature, and then when you see, the change, it's a good way to visually depict character change, or at least how they wish to portray themselves to the outside world as well.
Excellent. So, thank you for joining us in this delving into fashion as a means of telling story. Please join us next time for more Star Wars miscellany and deep dive focused topics.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. We've been talking Star Wars. We'll see you sometime soon in a galaxy right here.